Now to the UK, because the Online Safety Act has come into force, which means you need to verify how old you are before accessing certain websites. The idea is to protect children from online harm like pornography and suicide websites, but critics say it's curbing free speech online.
The promise was simple, and you have to admit, it was noble. To make the United Kingdom the safest place in the world to be online. To protect children from the darkest corners of the internet. For years, the government had told us a story about a digital world filled with predators and poisons.
We've got some measures which are there to protect children, in particular from sites like sites. We've had too many cases in the United Kingdom of young children taking their own lives.
A lawless frontier where the young and vulnerable are at constant risk. And they offered a solution. A landmark piece of legislation, the Online Safety Act, designed to finally hold the giants of Silicon Valley to account, force them to clean up their platforms, and erect a digital shield around the nation's children. It's a powerful story. It's an easy story to believe. Because who doesn't want to protect children? It's a moral imperative that just cuts through the political divides and silences debate. But now, you might be thinking, what could possibly be wrong with that? What if I told you that behind this moral crusade lies a technical architecture for mass censorship and surveillance that could redefine freedom online for every single person in the UK? What if the shield designed to protect children was in fact a cage being built around all of us? What if the promise of safety was just the wrapping paper on a gift no one asked for? The most significant expansion of state control over speech in modern British history? This isn't just about protecting kids anymore. This is about who gets to decide what you see, what you say, and what you're allowed to think. And the system to enforce it is already being switched on. On July 25th, 2025, a new phase of the Online Safety Act came into force. Suddenly, across the UK, the internet started to change. To access websites that host adult content, those simple I am 18 checkboxes vanished, replaced by demands for something much more personal. This was the moment the theoretical became real. And in the days that followed, something predictable yet revealing happened. Sign-ups for virtual private networks, VPNs, exploded. One provider, Proton VPN, reported a staggering 1,800% increase in daily sign-ups. And everyone's favourite, NordVPN, saw a 1,000% spike. This wasn't just a handful of people trying to access pornography, this was a digital migration. A quiet mass protest by hundreds of thousands of British citizens who looked at the new rules and saw something they deeply distrusted. They saw the beginning of a new kind of internet. An internet where your freedom to browse privately is no longer a given. An internet that asks for your papers. And they voted with their data, seeking refuge in the encrypted tunnels of VPNs. This sudden rush for digital privacy isn't an overreaction. It's a rational response to the quiet rollout of a system that has the potential to become a tool for unprecedented surveillance. Because the very same mechanisms being justified today for protecting children are the very same mechanisms that can be used tomorrow to control everyone else. This is the story of that system, the story of the Online Safety Act. To understand the danger, you first have to understand the sales pitch, and the pitch is flawless. The Online Safety Act, which received royal assent on October 26, 2023, is presented as a world-leading piece of legislation with one primary mission: to protect the vulnerable. The government, through its official channels, paints a picture of an internet rife with unavoidable harm. They talk about shielding children from content promoting suicide, self-harm, and eating disorders. They talk about eradicating online bullying, stopping hate speech, and cracking down on dangerous viral challenges. They want to make it impossible for a child to stumble upon pornography. Now, these aren't small goals. They are profound, and they tap into the deepest fears of any parent, any citizen who's seen the headlines about the mental health crisis among young people. The Act imposes a new duty of care on virtually every online service you can think of, from giants like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, to search engines like Google, to online gaming platforms, dating apps, and even the comments section of a small forum, heck, even Spotify. If it's a service accessible in the UK where users can interact, it falls under the Act's gaze. The law gives a huge amount of new power to Ofcom, the UK's communications regulator. Ofcom isn't just in charge of TV and radio anymore, it is now the UK's internet sheriff. It can write the rule books, the codes of practice that these companies must follow. It could launch investigations into companies it suspects are failing in their duty of care, and its enforcement powers are breathtaking. Ofcom can levy staggering fines of up to £18 million, or 10% of a company's global annual revenue, whichever is higher. For a company like Meta, that could theoretically mean a fine in the billions. And it doesn't stop there. Ofcom can demand internal data and documents. It can hold senior managers criminally liable, facing up to 2 years in jail. And what is perhaps its most extreme power, Ofcom can apply for a court order to have a non-compliant service blocked entirely in the UK, effectively wiping it from the British internet. The public justification is always, relentlessly, about the children. The government states that as of July 25th, 2025, platforms have a legal duty to use highly effective age assurance to prevent children from accessing harmful content. They must have clear systems for reporting problems. They have to take down illegal content swiftly. This is the official story. A narrative of protection, responsibility, and safety. A narrative that says, we are leading the way. We are making the internet safe. And this story is incredibly effective at manufacturing consent. Because if you question it, the implication is clear. As the Technology Secretary Peter Kyle bluntly put it when criticising opponents of the Act, if you want to overturn the Online Safety Act, you are on the side of predators. It's as simple as that. This is the moral shield. It's a tactic designed to shut down debate by framing any criticism as morally suspect. It suggests that if you have concerns about privacy or free speech, you must not care about children's safety. It's a manipulative trap that has been used time and time again to pass sweeping laws. It insists there is no nuance. You are either with us or you are with the monsters. But this deliberate simplification hides a much more complicated and dangerous truth. It hides the machine being built just beneath the surface. So, what happens when you look past the reassuring promises and start to examine the actual mechanics of the law? This is where the beautiful story begins to fall apart, and the ugly reality of the technical architecture comes into view. This is where we find the Trojan horse. The entire system rests on a few key pillars, each with enormous consequences for privacy and free expression. The first and most visible is age verification. The law demands platforms use highly effective age assurance to keep kids away from pornography. That phrase, highly effective, is doing a lot of work. Ofcom has been clear that a simple "Are you over 18?" tick box is ridiculous and no longer acceptable. Instead, they've approved a menu of much more invasive methods. These include facial age estimation, where you have to present your face to a camera so an algorithm can guess your age. It includes uploading a copy of your government-issued ID, like a passport or driver's license. It can also involve running checks through your bank or mobile phone provider. Let's be clear about what this really means. To access certain parts of the internet, you may now be required to prove your identity to a third-party company. Suddenly, anonymous browsing is conditional. Your right to read, watch, or participate in a conversation is no longer assumed. It must be earned by presenting your digital papers. This creates a record linking your real-world identity to the websites you visit. And what happens when the databases holding this incredibly sensitive information face the massive risk of being breached? The danger of forced outing, blackmail, and identity theft becomes colossal. Imagine a young person questioning their sexuality, seeking out a support forum in private, now being forced to link their face to that search. The chilling effect is immediate. Now, you might think, this only applies to porn sites, right? For now, yes. But the second pillar is proactive content filtering. The Act doesn't just ask platforms to take down reported content, it places a duty on them to proactively manage risk. They have to assess the risk of illegal and harmful content appearing on their services and implement systems to stop it. In practice, this means one thing: automated scanning. Algorithms designed to crawl through everything: your posts, your comments, your videos, even your direct messages, looking for anything that might violate the rules. Platforms, terrified of those massive fines, have every incentive to be overzealous. Their algorithms will be tuned to better safe than sorry. This inevitably chills legitimate speech. Satire about a sensitive topic, a discussion about mental health that uses trigger words, citizen journalism, all of it is at risk of being automatically flagged and removed by a machine that has no understanding of context. Smaller platforms that can't afford human moderation teams are hit hardest. Some have already decided the risk is too great and have started geo-blocking UK users, shrinking the digital world available to people in Britain. The most controversial part of this scanning regime concerns private encrypted messaging. The Act gives Ofcom the power to require a platform to use accredited technology to identify and remove child abuse material, even in private end-to-end encrypted messages. The government says it supports encryption and will only use this power when it's technically feasible, without breaking it. This is a dangerous and misleading statement. Every reputable cybersecurity expert and every major encrypted messaging provider like WhatsApp and Signal has said the same thing. It is not possible. The only way to scan an encrypted message is to scan it before it's encrypted on the sender's device, or after it's decrypted on the recipient's device. This is called client-side scanning, and it's the death of privacy. It is, by definition, a backdoor. It's like installing a government-mandated bug in every phone in the country. WhatsApp and Signal have been unequivocal, stating the Act posed an unprecedented threat to the privacy, safety, and security of every UK citizen. They threatened to leave the UK market rather than compromise their core promise of privacy. While the government has put a pin in enforcing this clause for now, the power remains on the books. A loaded gun, waiting for a minister to declare that some new, unproven technology is feasible. This isn't safety by design. It's censorship and surveillance by design. It's an infrastructure of control, built on the most emotionally charged justification imaginable. If what you're hearing so far concerns you, it's crucial that this information spreads. The law's effectiveness relies on the public believing the simple story, not understanding the complex reality. So please consider liking this video, leave any kind of comment down below, and subscribe and share this video with someone you know who uses the internet in the UK. Because the first step to challenging this system is making sure that people understand what is actually being built in their name. Okay, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. When you put all these pieces together, mandatory age verification, algorithmic scanning, immense regulatory power, and the threat to encryption, you don't just have a set of rules, you have an architecture, a new foundation for the internet in Britain, and it's an architecture of control. Think about the age verification system. In the short term, it's a check for specific websites. But what's the logical endpoint? To make compliance easier, the incentive will be to create centralized systems, a single digital identity managed by a handful of government-approved private companies that you use to prove your age across the web. We are already seeing companies like Yoti becoming the go-to provider. This is the quiet creation of a de facto national digital ID system, not through public debate, but as a side effect of online safety, a system where, to participate fully online, you must present your digital papers, a system that creates a honeypot of personal data so vast it will be a prime target for hackers, and a tempting tool for any government wanting to track its citizens. This is a classic example of surveillance creep, a power introduced for one sympathetic reason, protecting children, ends up normalizing a system that can be used for countless other things. Once the infrastructure is built and the public accepts that showing their ID to an algorithm is a normal part of using the internet, expanding its scope becomes terrifyingly easy. First, it's pornography, then perhaps gambling sites, then maybe social media to stop anonymous trolling. What about political forums to ensure civil debate? Can someone explain Spotify? I still don't understand Spotify. Evil music? Where does it stop? The Act's definition of harmful content is deliberately broad and flexible, giving the government of the day enormous influence over what speech is permissible. Critics have pointed out these powers could easily be used to suppress dissent by branding it as harmful. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. What's being built here is part of a global trend. Look at China, with its real name registration policy tying online activity to state identity documents to suppress dissent. Look at India, pressuring platforms to break encryption to trace messages. The UK is pushing these concepts further and faster, creating a blueprint for other nations. If the UK can successfully brand this system of surveillance as a child safety measure, it provides political cover for other governments to import the same model. The ultimate danger is the normalization of this control. It's control by app, not by boot. It's not soldiers on the street corners, it's an algorithm in your phone, a verification request on your screen, a quiet, creeping form of control that embeds itself into the fabric of daily digital life, making surveillance seem like an expectation, not an exception. The government insists that this will all be done proportionately, and that free speech will be protected. But the Act holds the threat of billion-pound fines over platforms' heads. Faced with that, which do you think a risk-averse corporation will choose? They'll choose censorship. They will over-comply. They will remove anything that comes close to the line, just to be safe. And in doing so, they will become the state's willing censors. This isn't a bug in the system, it's a core feature. This story is no longer theoretical. Since key parts of the Act were enforced, we are already seeing the consequences. First, as we saw, is the surge in VPN usage. This is more than a statistic, it's a behavioural signal. It shows a large part of the population doesn't trust the government and is actively bypassing the new rules. This creates a two-tier internet, one for the tech-savvy who can get around restrictions, and a more limited internet for everyone else. Ironically, civil liberty groups argue this could actually put children more at risk, pushing them towards anonymous tools to get around the very checks designed to protect them. Second is the retreat of smaller platforms. The Act's compliance burden is heavy for small businesses and communities. We've seen reports from owners of niche forums for mental health support, hobbies, or education who have simply decided it's not worth the risk. Faced with implementing expensive age verification or navigating complex legal duties, many are just blocking UK users. The result is a less diverse online ecosystem for people in Britain. Third is the chilling effect on speech. The fear of algorithmic censorship is real. Concerns have been raised that even Wikipedia, with its open editing model and articles on sensitive subjects, could fall foul of the Act's broad definitions of harm. The idea that access to the world's largest encyclopedia could be threatened illustrates the potential for overreach. And then there's the debate over encryption. The government's claim that it can force companies to scan private messages without breaking encryption has repeatedly been debunked. A coalition of tech companies, including Signal and WhatsApp, warned that the bill could break end-to-end encryption, opening the door to routine, general, and indiscriminate surveillance. This is a direct threat to the digital security of every journalist, activist, lawyer, and citizen wanting a private conversation. But there is resistance. Organizations like the Open Rights Group and Big Brother Watch have been sounding the alarm for years. A petition to repeal the Online Safety Act has gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures, showing significant public opposition. In response, the government has been dismissive, stating it has no plans to repeal the Online Safety Act. The political debate has become toxic. Critics are accused of being on the side of predators, a smear tactic designed to poison public discourse. It's an attempt to ensure the only story the public hears is the one about protecting children, while the story about building a state surveillance machine is dismissed as conspiracy theory. This is the state of play. A law sold on a promise of safety is actively making the internet less private, less free, and less secure for the people of the UK. This is a complex issue, but it's not a partisan one. The principles of privacy and freedom of speech should concern everyone. If you believe this law goes too far, there are things you can do. Support organisations like the Open Rights Group or Big Brother Watch, who are fighting this. Write to your Member of Parliament and let them know your concerns. The government is banking on public apathy. They are banking on you believing this is just about protecting children. Don't let them be right. We began with a simple story, a noble promise to protect the most vulnerable. It's a promise that no one can disagree with. But the Online Safety Act is not the simple solution it pretends to be. It's a Trojan horse. It uses the unassailable moral justification of child safety to wheel a vast and powerful apparatus of surveillance and censorship into the heart of our digital lives. Under the guise of protection, it mandates a system of age verification that is laying the groundwork for a national digital ID. Under the guise of safety, it demands algorithmic content scanning that will inevitably suppress legal speech. And under the guise of stopping criminals, it holds a gun to the head of private, encrypted communication, threatening to destroy the last bastion of true digital privacy. The law creates a system where the state doesn't need to censor you directly. It just creates rules so vague and penalties so severe that private companies do the censoring for them. It outsources state control to Silicon Valley, forcing platforms to become the arbiters of acceptable speech, all while operating under the watchful eye of a powerful regulator. This is not a hypothetical future, it's happening now. Are we willing to trade our freedom for a promise of safety? Are we willing to accept a world where we must prove our identity to browse the web, and where our private conversations can be scanned by machines? The promise was to make the internet a safer place for children, but the price of that promise might be an internet that is less free for everyone. This isn't about safety versus freedom, it's about a false choice. We can have an internet that is both safe and free, but the Online Safety Act, in its current form, does not deliver that. It delivers control. And once we have given that control away, getting it back will be almost impossible. The Trojan horse is inside the gates, and we are only just beginning to see what will emerge. If you found this topic interesting, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts. I've been Josh, this is The Villainous Vault.